What happens when your dream career doesn't quite fit the mold? Welcome back to When in STEM podcast, where we explore the many different paths STEM can take you. I'm your friend in STEM, Mary, and today I'm joined by someone that proves that a career in STEM can be outside the lab. Dr. Sarah Habibi is a scientist, an entrepreneur, a mom, and a science communicator. After earning her PhD, she realized that her calling was beyond academia. Today, she runs her own company creating science kits for kids, produces content that makes STEM fun and accessible, and even appears on TV sharing fun hands on experiments. We're diving into her journey from the decision to leave the lab to building her own business that revolves around STEM. This episode shows that whatever your STEM journey looks like, it's yours to define. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and see you in the episode. Sarah, I am so happy you agreed to this. I am so excited for this episode. I've been following you on Instagram for a while now, so I've been following your path and everything. You are and have done some amazing things. I've seen your work in the science communication area where you've worked with Bouncy and you've also worked with you have a TV segment that I've seen you on. So you are doing amazing work for the science community. And I'm so excited to have you on here and to dive more into who you are, how you got to these positions, and just to learn more about you.
Thank you so much for having me. I won't lie, I've been creeping the podcast and I love what you're doing here. And so when you reached out and you wanted to chat, I was like, 100%, let's do it. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you. Well, you are one of the reasons why this podcast exists is because you started on one route in the STEM world and now you're doing something completely different. I don't want to spoil too much at the beginning, but yeah, I just want to get into it so we could learn more about you. So, can you just give a little intro for the people who don't know you yet, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I am Sarah Habibi. I am the face behind Sarah A. Habibi on Instagram and science.bay on TikTok. Science Bay was once upon a time. That was what I started my content creation career as. But now, after finishing my PhD, I've kind of transitioned into the business realm and I started a business a year ago. And that's kind of what I'm going full steam ahead trying to do.
Oh, that's awesome. And so you said that you started off doing the science communication during your PhD era.
Yeah.
So what drew you to pursuing a PhD?
Yeah, so I mean, it was kind of one of those things that I did on a whim almost. I say I was in my undergrad and I did an undergrad thesis project in my fourth year, and I was working in a research lab. And at that point, up until that point, I didn't really know what research was. I didn't know grad school, any of that. I was just a undergrad trying to finish my bachelor's. And I did that undergrad project and I fell in love with research in the lab. And at the same time, also I'm an educator, so I've got my bachelor's of education. And so I thought, I want to teach at that university level. I want to be in institutions teaching science. And so I thought it makes sense. I like research. I know if I have a PhD, I can teach at the university. It just went hand in hand. And so that's kind of how I went into it. And I was lucky enough to stay in the lab that I did my undergrad project in. And so I was very familiar. I was very comfortable. I enjoyed it. And that's kind of how it happened. It was never planned prior to that.
And what were you majoring in during your undergrad?
So I was majoring in biology and I minored in organic chemistry.
Organic
Yeah, I
chemistry.
don't know. I was one of the weird ones who liked organic chemistry and I was good at it. I think because as a biology major, I was good at memorizing things. And okay,
Yeah.
orgo people don't kill me for it, but I did memorize a lot.
Okay, yeah, I hated organic chemistry, so that's why I'm like, organic, what? So what was your PhD research focused on?
Yeah, so overarching, it was molecular biology. And so I was doing a lot of gene cloning and then testing. And so I was looking at a parasitic worm that infects livestock like cattle and goats. And essentially, this parasite, all the pharmaceuticals that are on the market targeting that parasite, these parasites have developed resistance to. And so what we were looking at was I was identifying and cloning and characterizing new drug targets, potential drug targets in these parasites.
Wow, that's
Mhm.
really interesting.
Mhm.
And do you like remember still like the couple of experiments you had to do during that time?
Yeah, I mean, I was doing a lot of molecular cloning, trying
Hmm.
to clone specific genes. That was using race. Oh my God, that made me crazy. And then a lot of PCR, of course, and, cell culturing
Yeah.
to test. And then my major piece of equipment that I used was electrophysiology. And so I did this in xenopus oocytes, so frog eggs. And we would
Oh.
essentially inject the RNA into the frog egg, and then the frog egg would translate it and express the protein on the membrane of the cell. And then
Yeah.
we would test it to see how the channel opens and closes because these were ion channels. And we would
Yeah.
test the current going through them. And so that was yeah, fun. Can't say fun times. It was tough times, but when the
Tough
results came
times.
in, it was fun times.
That's awesome. So PhDs are much about science as they are about personal growth. So what did your PhD teach you about yourself?
So I think it really taught me how to just be very self sufficient and to be a self starter. And so I had a professor, he was amazing because he was very supportive, but he was also had more of a hands off approach. And he
Hmm.
trusted my judgment with a lot of things after he saw how things were progressing in the lab. And so I really had to lean on myself to design the experiments, like set my goals. If I wanted a paper out, like I had to just start writing it. I couldn't wait for him to tell me, like, oh, now's the time to write. Like I wrote all my papers, I did everything on my own, you can say. And so it really taught me how to be independent like that and just not wait for something to come, just to take charge and do it myself.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, was there a point during your PhD where you started questioning if this path was for you?
Yeah, I think it was after my first. It's so ironic because it was the first research conference, international conference that I went to down in Florida. And so I'm from Canada, and so it was the first time traveling out for a conference. At the same time, so my husband came with me at the time, and I had just started my Instagram page. Like I had made my first like science communication post, and this was back in
Mhm.
2017. And so
Wow.
um it was that conference that I started talking to people there, and I was sitting in on networking events, and I was just like, wow, like I came back to the hotel that night and I told my husband, I was like, I hate this. Like I was crying. I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like I don't want to rely on applying for grants for the rest of my life. Like the stress of that, like I'm like, I like my research, but being in the overall like academic environment, I'm like, I don't enjoy this. And he was like, well, we got to figure this out because you're like halfway through a PhD, or I was a year into my PhDs. Like you just started. Like, so that's kind of when I think it hit me that maybe this isn't the right path, but it never made me think like I don't want to finish my PhD. I always
Mm.
wanted to finish it.
And looking back, do you feel like your PhD prepared you for what you're doing right now?
It definitely prepared me. I mean, there's so many soft skills that you learn doing a PhD, whether it's the research aspect of things like not knowing something and then having to find the answers, looking up new protocols, how you organize your actual data or just organize things in general, your time management skills, all of that really translated to this post PhD world and especially in business because I'm doing this thing like all by myself. I have nobody telling me how to run my business. I have a business major. And so really having to research and figure out what do I do next? Like how do I get in contact with the right people? How do I test things to see if things are working or not working? And pivoting and all of those soft skills I think I definitely got from my PhD. And then also having, I hate to say it, but like having the credibility of having a PhD and a bachelor's of education and being in the space of science education for kids, I think that
Mhm.
also really helps with my business and a bit more credibility.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And so when you were sitting in that hotel room crying to your husband, after that, what's the first step did you take to fully be like, okay, this is not for me. I should try to look for something else?
So from that point on, for me, it really became about finishing my PhD as fast as possible. I know this sounds terrible, probably now saying it back, but I was like, I need to finish as like I don't want this to go over the number of years that it's supposed to go. I don't want to
Mhm.
be 7, 8 years into a PhD, still not graduating. And so that's when I really took my studies into my own hands and I started writing papers. Like everything that I came to, I was like, okay, I was making my own experiments. I was like, okay, this can go into one paper. And I started writing because I knew that if I had a certain number of papers by the end of my PhD that I could write. It's almost like it's called publication by thesis, like thesis by publication. And so instead of a whole thesis that you're writing essentially from scratch, because I had already published papers in peer reviewed journals, I could put those all together and I had like connecting chapters. And so that was my main goal. And I was just focusing on writing and publishing. And by the end of it, I had 4 papers and they had all like connected really nicely. And then, I mean, the cherry on top of the cake was that COVID happened in my final year of grad school. And so there was a couple experiments that we thought maybe we could try again,
Mhm.
but or not try again, to try to further the research, and then we all got locked out of our labs, and so I took that opportunity to just write up my whole thesis
Mhm.
and be done. And I knew I had put so much into it, into the research, and I wasn't rushing, but I also wasn't just like sitting back and letting things happen. Like every day was jam packed, and I was so determined just to get it done. Yeah.
And how long did it take you to finish your PhD?
So from start to finish, it was 4 years. Yeah. And
Wow.
so that was always my goal. So I started in my master's, and we always knew that I was going to transition into my PhD after 1 year. And so after 1 year, I did my PhD candidacy exam where I had to have essentially a mini defense of what I was proposing for my PhD and to show that I had
Mhm.
enough research done to show that I was capable. And so after a year I did that, I transitioned directly into the PhD. And then from that point on, it was 3 years. So total from starting the master's and then transitioning, it was 4 years.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. And so you share science content on social media. When was the first time you posted that video?
So, oh my gosh, it's so funny because back when I started in 2017, there was no videos. And so, well, I did some videos. My first post, I still remember, I was in the airport on the way to the conference and I was eating smoked salmon breakfast. And it's a picture of me. And then I talk about omega 3s in the caption because this was the era of Instagram where it was a picture and then a really long caption. I still love my long captions. Don't get me wrong, but that was the time. And then I had this series called Teacher Tuesday where I would post videos. They're still on my Instagram. I watch them back and I'm like, "Oh my god." But Teacher Tuesday, and there was like, I feel like we weren't editing videos back then. So imagine just
Mhm.
60 seconds of me talking super fast, trying to get it all in one take in front of a whiteboard, explaining whatever process it was.
Mhm.
And so that's what I was doing back then. And then Reels came out, I think, a few years later
Yeah.
in like 2019, 2020, and then I started to dabble in reels. Really growing an Instagram account back then, it was so different because it was all pictures. That's
Pictures,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like I remember Instagram was all about posting your food, nothing
Mhm.
else. So now when you said like the salmon, I'm like, "Oh yeah, wait. Instagram was all about just posting what you're eating."
Yeah.
And now it just turned into something completely different, which is
So
pretty
different.
awesome.
Yeah.
And so what made you think to start the Teacher Tuesday segment?
Yeah, I mean, I loved teaching at that point. I was already a TA, a teaching assistant at the
Mm,
university. And so I think I had just gotten my job also teaching at the college. So there was a college
mhm,
attached to our university. And so I was a lab professor there. And
mhm,
I always had that teaching bone in me. I had just finished my bachelor's of education. I was in my PhD and I just wanted to share that online. And I'm a talker, as you can probably see. And so it kind of just felt very natural. And I kept up with that
mhm.
for almost a year, I think. And then it kind of faded. It was a
Wow.
lot. Yeah.
A year is a commitment.
Yeah.
Like it's yeah, but
Yeah.
that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And so you finished your PhD and you had the realization of, hey, I don't want to go into academia.
Mhm.
What did you do next after you graduated?
So I graduated in November of
Mhm,
2020. And then after the holidays, I started applying for jobs. I was
mhm,
applying for just like I was applying for industry jobs, I was applying for academic jobs, I was applying to everything and anything. While at the
yeah.
same time, I had started talking to a faculty member in our faculty of education. And I had started almost like a postdoc. It wasn't official because I wasn't getting paid for it, but I was going to like these lab meetings and I was starting to help writing these papers. And it was more from the education side of things with STEM
Mhm,
education. And so it made sense for me. But it was kind of, you can see, I was doing a bunch of different things and nothing really felt like it was like I was super passionate about it. I wasn't 100%. I mean, I was not getting interviews, and then I was getting some interviews, and the interviews were not going well. I wasn't,
Mm.
things were not working out. And then finally I stumbled across this job. Actually, somebody had sent it to me at a university in my city, and it was for a teaching professor, like a faculty position,
Mm.
for a tenure track professor position in their science department. But the focus of the research was science communication. And at that point, I had already, I don't know if I even shared this, I had published my own paper on the basically delivery, like the different modes of delivering science communication on social media, on TikTok and on Instagram, and looking at video and static content. And I published this in Plows One, and it was my it was my first time publishing a research paper on my own without a faculty member.
Yeah.
And I conducted the research. And this was again during 2020, when I had started posting on TikTok, and I saw that some videos were having more traction. And it's kind of cool, not to toot my own horn, but this is the first research study that came out looking at SciComm on TikTok. And since
Yeah.
then, it has been published like, oh my God, it's been published almost 200 cited, sorry, almost 200 times. It's like I
Wow.
get people contacting me all the time about it because it was like one of the first ones of that. So essentially, I was taking that. I was like, oh my God, I just published this study. I had this
Mhm.
awesome opportunity for this job. If you know faculty job interview processes, they're so long. There's like the first round of interviews, and then there's the second round, third round. And I got to the final round where it was between me and two other candidates, and it was a 2 day long interview. And I was like, sure, I'm like, I got this. It was at the university that my mom did her undergrad at. Like everything felt so perfect. And
Mhm.
then the interview went amazing. And then, days go by, and then like a week goes by, and then like 2 weeks go by, and you start to feel like, okay, maybe I didn't get this. And then, yeah, and then I finally got like the email that like I didn't get the position. And of
Mhm.
course I was shattered because
Yeah.
I had thought like, this is it. This is finally it. But it was really that moment that changed everything for me, because it was from that moment that I was like, all right, maybe this isn't for me. I'm pushing towards something that I don't
Mhm.
think is the right next step in my path.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I also just found out I was pregnant with my son. And so I was like, well, who's going to hire me now? I'm
Yeah.
pregnant. I'm about to go on mat leave. So it was a crazy time, but it all kind of like pushed me in the right direction,
Yeah.
or made me realize that maybe academia wasn't for me. And so it took from November until end of June the following year. So almost like just over 6 months to have that realization.
Wow.
Yeah, that's kind of when it all changed.
But I always say everything happens for a reason.
It does. It
And
does.
a door closed leads to, I know it's all these are so cliches, but like they're true.
It's so
Like
true. So true.
every closed door leads to another open
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So, and now you're here.
Yeah.
And
That's the story of my life, honestly. Things always go wrong, and I'm like, it's okay. Something better is coming. It's all right.
yeah,
The next thing's coming.
exactly. That's how I am too. I'm like, okay, this happened. Sucks to suck, but you just gotta get up, move on, and keep going because something better is gonna happen for sure.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so when you had that realization and then you went to break the news to your mentors and family, how did they get the news? Like, you're like, okay, I don't want to be in academia or industry. Like, I'm going to do my own thing.
So, I mean, a part of making that decision was speaking with my husband and like
Hmm.
about it, and he's always been like the biggest support for me. And so we had that realization when we were literally cleaning out our garage at the end of June, like right after I had gotten the rejection email. And he just looked at me. He's like, all right, you just need to decide what you want to do. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? And I'm like, I want to do content creation. I want to stop applying for jobs. He's like, all right, let's do that. Let's stop talking about it. You're going to do that. And then it was that
Hmm.
moment. It was almost like freeing for me. I'm like, okay, I have the most important person in my life, like supporting this decision, seeing it, that telling other people about it. I think at the beginning, I tiptoed around it a lot. I was like, I told people, I'm going to do content creation because I'm about to have a baby. I'm going to, do this for the first year while I have the baby. And then once the baby's in, a year old and goes to daycare, then I'll revisit academia. And so I kept telling people like, oh, after a year, I'm gonna revisit academia. And then slowly, you can imagine, as I went through that year, I was like, well, there's no way I'm going back to academia.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what I want to do. And so I think it was at the beginning, people would say, oh, okay, when you get a real job, or eventually when you get a real job, or things like that. But then I think as things I started to have some success in the content creation side of things, and people
Mhm.
started to understand. But I mean, my parents always supported me. They understood. They were always, I know they were nervous, and they say they were nervous because they worked the same job their whole career. They
Mm.
retired, got a good pension, and that's all they knew. And so, of course, it was scary that their daughter is now doing something completely different
Yeah.
with a lot of risk involved. But all I cared really about was like my parents and my in laws, my husband's parents. And if they were all on board, I was like, I don't really care what any other family or
Yeah.
whatever thinks. And my grandparents were very supportive too.
Mhm.
They loved it, especially when they started seeing me on TV because they're old school. They were
Yeah.
like, "Oh my god!" So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, just yeah.
It's so awesome because, like, taking these risky steps is so hard when you're doing it on your own
Hmm.
and you don't have a support system that you could lean on. And they could be like, okay, go for it. Like, whatever happens, we'll be here, like, no matter what.
Hmm.
So having that system like lifts you up at the same time where you're like crumbling and it's like, I don't know what I'm doing, but they lift you up even though you don't know what you're doing and they like try to help you out, figure things out
Yeah.
as you go down that route.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to hear that you had such a amazing, amazing support system to help you navigate what you wanted to do next.
Yeah, honestly, I couldn't have done it without them. But also,
Uh-huh.
even for those people who might not have a support system, or
Mhm.
people aren't necessarily supporting, sometimes like we always know what's best within,
Mhm.
and sometimes you almost have to have those blinders on and like just like
Yeah.
block out all the rest. But it
Yeah.
definitely is easier when you find at least one person who supports you in that path
Mhm.
you're taking.
I totally agree. And so with that, what advice would you give to someone who's in the middle of their PhD and they're sort of realizing maybe that's not something for them?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if you're in the middle of your PhD and you're coming to that realization, if it's one of those where you go into the lab every day and you absolutely hate it and it's hurting your mental health, your physical health, all of that, you don't see yourself pursuing it, anything afterwards with it, then that might be one of those scenarios where you have to look at if this necessarily is the right path to finish, because there's no
Mhm.
shame in stopping something. Just because you start something doesn't mean you have to stop it. And so that's something I think you should look at. But if you're in the PhD and you're like, I don't know necessarily if I want to go into academia or industry after, but I do like the research and I do enjoy doing what I'm doing on the day to day
Yeah.
basis, then I think that's the bucket that I fell into.
Mm.
Continue, see if you can finish it in a timely manner that works for your timelines, and you know, while you're doing that, start looking at what the alternatives are, because that's also something I did when I started having these realizations, was looking at what other job opportunities are out there and what kind of experience can I gain now in grad school to set me up better for when I graduate and I start applying for those positions. And so whether it's like a postgraduate program, whether it's a specific type of industry job or academic job, like starting to look at what those alternative options are, and trying to, I guess, build your CV to fit those roles better. But I think you got to see, is the day to day, can you handle it? Do you still enjoy the day to day, or do you hate the day to day and you hate the outcome? Because if you don't like both, then I would say just don't do
Mhm.
that to yourself. You don't have to do
Yeah.
it to yourself.
I
Yeah.
totally agree. Yeah, and I feel like people, including myself, if like I'm starting one thing, I'm like, I need to finish it even though I hate it, just
Hmm.
because like I have to finish it. I don't want to I don't want to quit. But sometimes the best thing you could do for yourself is realize like, okay, it's not for me anymore. I have to walk away.
Hmm.
Because the hardest thing is to walk away from something like you've thought your whole life that's something you wanted to do.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So you started posting on social media and taking content creation seriously as your full-time job. What made you realize there was power in science communication?
Yeah, I think it's when I started, like in the early years, just really showcasing the why behind a lot of the really cool things that we see
Mm.
online. And then seeing that like people, like my friends and my family at the beginning, that's who the following is. That like my friends and family were actually learning from what it was that I was sharing. And then you have strangers reach out and say like, "Oh, I never knew this," or like my kid followed like follows what you're doing and they're now into science. And it's really those little bits that made me realize, okay, there is impact here explaining, the why and the how behind everyday science. And that's really what stuck with me. And then also honestly having like big, global brands reach out and want to work with you to, explain the science behind their products, which is so cool that these brands are now placing value on communicating the science behind what they sell and produce. And that was another big eye opener for me that, yeah, there is a place for this, and there is a need for it. And I'm happy to fill that need.
Oh, that's
Mhm.
awesome.
Mhm.
And so, how did you move from having an online social media to more of a TV guestly appearance?
Mhm. So it started during the pandemic actually when everything was virtual. I started working with a publicist for I worked with her for a month or two, and she got me she helped get me some media segments, and again they were all virtual, so I was doing them from home. And then that stopped, and then things started to come back online. And then last summer after I started my business, I wanted to start getting back into the media landscape. And now, especially with things being in person, I was eager about that. And so I
Yeah.
joined a media coaching program where essentially they helped us like formulate good pitches, and they helped putting us in contact with a few producers on these shows, or they gave us the contacts and they gave us the tools to essentially be our own publicists. And so after doing that, I made a few good relationships with some producers on these TV shows or channels, and that was really it. I mean, there's one. So breakfast television, BT, it's one of the biggest morning shows in Canada, or it is the biggest morning show in Canada. And I've watched them for years, and I love what they do, and I love the people on the show. And so building that as being one of my strongest relationships was
Mhm.
is pretty cool, because now I'm doing segments almost every month with them, which is
Wow.
which is really fun, because now we have the relationship. They trust what I do. I get to show really cool science experiments and have fun and do all of that on air. And so that's kind of how that transition. But I think it really just started with putting myself out there, pitching, and then
Mhm.
once I got that first opportunity, really nurturing that relationship by doing a good job delivering on what I promised, being prepared, because it's live TV. You have 5 minutes and that's it. It's got to work. You've got to nail it in that time. And I think from that, it's just kind of helped me further develop my skills and relationships. And now here we are.
That's awesome. What if for me that's like bringing science to like television or social media. That's what's lacking. Even like now in 2025, like we need more people like you to educate the younger generation, and then we
Mhm,
need people to educate the mid generation and then the older generation as well. So I
mhm.
really really love when every time I see you post about it, I'm like, "Oh, this is awesome," because like seeing you do that is really really really, it's just like what science communication is all about.
Yeah.
And
Thank
so
you.
social media can be pretty rewarding, but also, as you said, you need to prep for things. You do the TV segments, you have ads to do, you have content to create for your own self. It could be pretty draining.
Mhm.
So, what are some struggles you faced?
Yeah, I think really it's juggling it all at the same time, especially now with a few things. One, having a business and having to
Mhm,
create content for that business.
mhm,
And then also, I mean, people who have been following me from the beginning, from 2017, my content has changed drastically over the years. And so it started as grad school content, and then it turned into like a lot of like grad school memes type of stuff, like, but this was back in the day. And then it transitioned to being a mom and like the kids science stuff. And I was
mhm.
posting a lot of science experiments for kids on my page. And then now it's kind of transitioned almost to more of like an inspirational, I would say, type of channel. I mean, I show motherhood, I show being a business owner, I show being a woman in STEM, and it's all of it's that side of things. And so what I really struggled with is changing my niche or changing the type of content that I share. That many times. I think now I've nailed what I want to share. It's been hard to don't know, it's just been hard to keep up that audience, I guess. Like I have like my core audience, but I find like when I make these like big transitions, of course you lose followers and then you'll gain new followers and not getting trapped in that whole cycle of really analyzing that kind of stuff. And yeah, so that's been a bit of a struggle, but I'm kind of at the point where I just want to share whatever I want to share. And if that doesn't fit the
Yeah.
niche or if that doesn't fit like whatever it is on my page, because if you were I feel like if you look at my page right now, it's like a dumpster fire of just like a whole bunch of different stuff. It's just because I'm a creative at heart. I am like, I'm not going to be sucked into what I have to post because I find when I got into that mindset of like, I have to post this certain type of content, it really drained me and I had a lot of burnout. And so now I'm like, I'm just going to post whatever. I feel like posting and that's that. And so the biggest struggle right now, I guess the past month has been having both my kids home on summer break and also trying to deliver on this big school board partnership that I have going on. I feel like my content is kind of taken a back seat, which doesn't help with the content creation side of things, but everything happens for a reason. We're in the season for a reason and I'm trying to make the most of it. And when I can post, I can post. When I can't, I can't. But just going about it like that, trying to take like all the pressure off, essentially.
No, I totally agree with the niche thing because
Mm-hmm.
I'm at a point now where I'm like, okay, like I post all like me in the lab, but there's so much to what I do other than just be in the lab because like how do I show up to the lab is because I work on myself outside of the lab as well.
Mm-hmm.
So also trying to have to showcase that niche, it's hard. It's hard to try to get out of it. But I relate to you with that struggle of trying to leave the box of what you created for your own self and try
Mm-hmm.
to create another box and keep constantly doing it as well. It's something I feel like, especially as science communicators, we struggle with because we're super creative and we want to do so many things at once,
Yeah.
but sometimes we can't.
Yeah. But I think you're doing, honestly, I think you're doing amazing. Like your
Oh, thank you.
transition from like lab work to now, your career and then like the home side of things and the makeup and all of that. I think it ties in really nicely. You're doing a good job. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You as well.
Yeah.
I learned from you, the expert who's
Stop.
been
I
doing
learned
this
from
since
all of you.
2017.
I feel like all of like some of the new because you started. I don't know how you're more recent, not more
Yeah.
recent, but it
It's
wasn't
been
2017.
years.
It's been
Yeah,
2 years.
years.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like you and like obviously like Claudia, like I feel like I look up to you girls. I'm like, you guys are doing so good. I need to learn from you. I need to take that energy.
We all learn from each other.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you did bring up your business a little bit, and
Hmm.
I would love to jump in
Yeah.
onto the business. What business do you have, and sort of the idea behind why you created that business?
So my business is Mito and Co. It's a play on mitochondria. And so I started Mito and Co. just over a year ago. So in March of 2020, what year are we? 2025, 2024. And I always had the idea of like wanting to do some sort of subscription box
Mm.
type of thing. And I was sitting on the idea for, I'm not kidding, like 2 years. Every time I thought about it, I was like, there's just too much logistically. I'm not ready for this. I'm not a business person, and all of the reasons why I couldn't do it. But then I started to notice that as I was posting more science content or science experiments on my page, a lot of times parents were like, okay, but where do I get this material? And how do I set this up? Or I was getting feedback that like, this is great, but I just don't have the time to like go and grab all these things and set it up. And so I thought, you know what, let me put together a box. And so that's where I was like, I committed to creating one box. It was going to be for March break, last March break. So kids are home from school for a week. And parents often need things to do with them. And so I created this box where it had 7 experiments. So every day of the week for March break, they had an experiment to do. And it was received so well. And I got such great feedback from it that I was just like, I was so excited about like the potential of what this could be. And so from that point, I created the business Mito and Co. I did all the branding, I planned the new boxes, and I was like, this is what I want to do, because as much as I love content creation and I love what I do in that realm of things, I quickly realized probably a couple years ago that content creation is not my be all and end all. That's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And
Mhm.
as a content creator full time, that is your path. But I don't want that to be my path. I want it to be something that I can do for fun, but I don't have to rely on for my well-being and my livelihood. And so I always wanted something more. And that's why this business really is what I think can take me to that next level and be my forever
Mhm.
running this business. And so
Mhm.
that's where it started. That's why I'm doing it. And now, my goal has always been to get more science into the hands of kids at homes and giving parents the tools to really integrate that STEM learning into their homes. And so getting all the materials, the lessons, they get, parent cheat sheets, they get videos, they get everything to really make it as easy and hands off for them to do at home.
Mhm.
And that's the goal. And now with having this partnership with the school board, I'm getting those experiments into even more children's hands.
Yeah.
And now I'm giving the resources to educators. And so it's kind of a full circle moment. And I'm just so
Yeah.
excited at like all the different paths that I can take with it.
Oh, that's awesome. And for people who want to have access to these kits, where can they find you?
Yeah, at mitoandco.com. So MITO and co.com. And that's where you can get everything. Or you can follow me on Instagram, and there's a link in my bio, of course, for
Yeah.
the
I'll also put the link in the description down below. That way it's easy for people to just click on and go and check it out.
thank you.
So, do you think as a community, we need to expand the definition of what it means to be in STEM?
I think so, 100%. I definitely. I mean, there's so many areas of STEM. And there's so many different ways that you can be a part of STEM and a champion of STEM, and an advocate for STEM. And I personally, I've always felt like I don't belong in STEM because of my different interests and my different paths that I take in, and even doing STEM for kids. I sometimes, you get feedback from people like, you didn't describe this deep enough or properly enough or whatever. And it's like, well, at some point, a child is not going to understand a
Mhm.
PhD level explanation of
Yeah.
something in science that they see every day. And so
Mhm.
I think there's many different ways that we can communicate knowledge in STEM and different ways that we can contribute to
Mhm.
promoting STEM, whether it be with adults or children or in industry. And so I think
Mhm.
there is work to be done on changing the definition, but I think it really helps with having so many different people
Mhm.
paving their own different paths in
Yeah.
in STEM and showing that on
Yeah.
social media so people become aware of what's out there.
I totally agree. And you're a scientist, a communicator, an entrepreneur, a wife, and a mom. How do you do it all?
I don't know. I sometimes look at life and I'm like, I have no idea how I have time to do all these, but I think it's just
Mhm.
I have found something that I am passionate about and that I love. And I love my family, I love my kids, and I love my work. And it's just really accepting that I like to say you can really have it all and you can do it all, but you can't do it all at once. And so just accepting that if I have to work, yes, I'm going to have the guilt of not being with my family, but I'm choosing that. And so I have to be all in. And if I'm with my
Mhm.
family, yes, sometimes I'm going to be thinking of this whole to do list in the back of my mind that I have to do with my work, but I'm with my family right now. I have to be all in. And so it just accepting that really. And that's how I do it all. And of course, with a lot of coffee.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I'm a coffee person. Yeah, it's like dedicating that chunk of a time to this task or this thing that you're doing
Yeah.
and like going back to the other thing. Cause I feel like personally I struggle with like okay, let's say today's Tuesday. I have to work on this and on that and this and this and this. And then I only get to work on two things. And by the end of the day, I'm like, ah, I'm a failure because I
Yep.
didn't get to work on everything.
Yep.
But then I'm like, no, like you need to dedicate, as you were saying, like if this time is for the podcast, this time is for the podcast. If this time is for work, you focus on your work. If this time for X, you focus on that. And I feel
Exactly.
like as scientists or when I'm in the lab, I do like three experiments at once.
Hmm.
So I have inherited that habit of like doing everything at once and making sure I could do everything at once
Hmm.
into my life,
Hmm.
which can be a good thing, but at the same time, it could like be a bad thing because I feel like I'm not doing enough because I know my capability of doing three experiments at once.
Exactly. Yeah. And so
Mm.
it's like just slowing down and focusing on
Yeah.
one task. And sometimes when you
Hmm.
do that, you end up completing it faster because you're focused on that
Yeah.
one thing.
And so, what do you hope kids walk away with after trying one of your science kits or watching your experiments?
Yeah, well, I hope they walk away with an excitement and optimism towards science. And then I also hope they walk away with just learning the why behind something really cool that they see. And so whether it's the connection that they mix, an acid and a base, baking soda and citric acid together, and it produces bubbles, that's carbon dioxide gas, and then connecting that to when you blow out or you blow air into a balloon, we're blowing out that carbon dioxide gas. Like little things like that, those connection pieces, as simple as they may sound to somebody who's, has a career in science, it's something that's so exciting for children to learn and understand. And so taking those little bits of knowledge away, for sure.
And for the older generation, what would you say to someone listening who feels like their only option in STEM is research?
I would say that research is it's just like a tip of the iceberg. There's this whole other, I feel like if you look at an iceberg, there's a small part that's out of the water and then there's this huge mass that's underneath the water. And everybody looks at an iceberg of what you see because that's all people talk about, that's all they know is that little piece of, white ice cap that you see coming out of the water. And that's research and I feel like that's academia. But there's this
Mhm.
whole mound of other opportunities that we don't really see unless you go looking for them. And so, unless you're going to put on your scuba diving goggles and go under the water, the cold water, and look at what else is there, we don't
Mhm.
see it. And so, just start to talk to people. Start to talk to people in academia, in industry, people in business, people go to conferences that are about like self improvement. Just talk to people and start to look out at what else is out there because I promise you, your eyes are going to be opened. And if you can try and have a conversation with somebody, whether it be somebody new at a family event or somebody new in a social setting, about what it is that you're interested in and what it is that
Mhm.
fuels you and drives you, I promise you, you're going to take something from that conversation that's going to spark an idea in you
Mhm.
and something else that you can possibly do because that's where it comes from. You need to just sometimes just not knowing and you got to go out and put yourself in opportunities to learn more and know what's out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. You got to do your research outside of the lab.
Yeah. Exactly. You got to do your research outside of the lab, but make it fun. Like talk to people and yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. If you could rewrite the narrative of what success in STEM looks like, what would you say?
I would say success in STEM is finding something that makes you excited about waking up every day to
Mhm.
explore, but also has an impact on the communities that you feel most connected to. And when you're able to have that impact, and when you're able to have that inner self motivation and love for what it is that you do, you will always be successful because you'll want to work hard at it and you'll know that you're actually changing the lives and impacting the community of people that matter the most to you.
Wow. I love that. I'm going to steal that.
Steal it.
That was awesome. And so next up is Career Corner.
Mhm.
Career Corner is a listener submitted segment where I read questions from our listeners and we just give our take on and give a little bit advice to the people who are listening. So first question is, Looking back, do you think your PhD was worth it even though you didn't follow the traditional research path?
Yes, I definitely think my PhD was worth it. I think without completing my PhD, I wouldn't have come to the realizations that I have come to now. And like we've said this whole podcast, everything happens for a reason. And so that's what was necessary at that time in my life. And the lessons that I learned from that helped put me on the path that I am today. And it also helped me with giving me the tools that I didn't even know that I needed at the time to run and start and run my now business. So it was
Mhm.
definitely worth it. But I think it was worth it because I'm looking at it and I'm looking at all the aspects that were beneficial, because I could look at it in a completely different way, that was a totally waste of time and money and everything. But I like to look at things with more of a sense of optimism and gratitude. And, again, there's something I could take from that time in my life. And so 100%
Mhm.
worth it.
That's awesome. I love that. Question two. How do you measure success now compared to how you did during your PhD?
Yeah, so I think it's tough because success, yeah, it looks very different. But in my business side of things, success matters. I mean, with if I'm able to sell my boxes, of course, but not only like sell the boxes, am I getting good feedback from
Mhm.
the boxes, but even little things like, okay, so kind of a tangent, but I got a shipment come in with a bunch of items for my new boxes. And because
Mhm.
of the travel time and the heat, some of the items got warped. The shape of them got warped. Having that happen and then figuring out
Mhm.
a way to, okay, I need to order new tubes of this, but I need to keep the caps. And then me and my dad were like looking at, okay, how can we put them in hot water to reshape the plastic, cool them down, and like all these things to like actually fix the problem. And now I'm so happy with the outcome of, just swapping a few little things and fixing them. It's a lot of work, but that to me is success, because I'm like, I was faced with
Mhm.
this problem having like 1,000 units of something, and then
Yeah.
now feeling like it's the end of the world and now fixing it. I'm like, okay, that's success. And so just like that growth and learning every time I learn something new, and I optimize something, that to me is like
Yeah.
that's really successful.
That's the troubleshooting skills you get from your PhD and from research.
Exactly.
You're like, ah, I need to troubleshoot this.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And my dad also was is a scientist. He went to grad
Uh-huh.
school, and so like he loves it when we're faced with these problems. The two of us
Mhm.
together, we're just like, what can we do to fix it?
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Question three. As someone who made a career pivot, how do you handle imposter syndrome in a non traditional STEM role?
Yeah, I feel like imposter syndrome is definitely alive and well. It's still there, but I try and look at it as if, when when I'm in a room with a bunch of people, or I'm learning something new, and I feel like I don't belong. It's almost like that's a good feeling to have, or that's a good space to be in, because if I feel like I don't belong, it means I'm not confident in there, and it means there's so much area for me to grow and learn in that room and in that space. And so I take it as, okay, yeah, I'm not perfect. I don't know everything,
Mhm.
but I can learn. So putting myself in those uncomfortable situations and feeling like an imposter. I went to a angels investor meeting a couple months ago, and I was watching these business pitches where they're, fundraising millions of dollars, and I'm hearing what they're sharing and what they've done so far in their business and their trajectory. And a lot of them were STEM based businesses as well. And I
Mhm.
sat there thinking like, whoa, I do not belong here. Like I am in the
Yeah.
infancy of my business, but instead of feeling down about that and being down on myself and like I can't do this, I was so motivated. I was inspired by these people. Like, okay, no, one day I could be that person, at the front, raising
Mhm.
millions of dollars. And it's not until I, just embrace being in this uncomfortable position and feeling like an imposter, but also realizing that I can learn from this and I can better myself,
Mhm.
then that's how we deal with it. But it's always going to be there. But I think it's just shifting how
Yeah.
we look at being
Yeah.
imposters.
I agree. I feel like we are always gonna feel like imposters wherever we are in a non in a space where we're not used to.
Mhm.
And then, as you said, like it really depends on what you do after you feel that feeling,
Mhm.
whether you just let it consume you and you just play it over and over again and just let these feelings just grow in you, or you do something about it and be like, okay, I did not know X, Y, and Z. Let me start knowing these things. Let me
Mhm.
grow. So when I'm in these spaces again, I don't feel this imposter for the same exact things, but I might feel an imposter for other things. And that way you could grow and grow and grow to a point where I feel like you're always going to feel like you're in a room where you might not know 100% of the things.
Mhm.
But that's what makes us, especially scientists, who we are, because we're always learning something new. We're always seeking to learn something new. And we're always looking for the unknown and trying to identify it to something for everyone can know what it is. And so I feel like what you said
Definitely.
of like growing in that space and trying to learn, and it's really how we shift our mindset towards it, is
Mhm.
really, really important,
Yeah.
rather than just dwelling in the fact that we don't know what the topic is about or
Mhm.
anything.
Mhm. I mean, mindset is everything, right? People talk about it and you could think like, ah, whatever, like mindset. Like, I feel like a lot of people think it's just like, I don't know, like woo woo, like whatever.
Yeah.
But mindset really can change your whole life.
Hmm.
Just how you look at things, reframing things.
Yeah.
And, we've had a lot of great examples here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's the power of the mind.
it is. It is.
Yeah. Well, that's it for Career Corner. I just want to say I relate to you in different ways. And I'm so glad you just said yes to this podcast because I learned a little bit about you. I learned more about you, and I have a lot of ideas that you just like made me think about. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for being one of the people in STEM who took a leap of faith and did something different. I hope someone from this will learn that, hey, it's okay not to go the traditional route. You could do something different and you will be successful.
Okay.
So thank you again. And for everyone tuning in, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And you could check out Sarah. I have all her social links linked in the description and her also science kit linked in the description. Give her some love and hope to see you in the next episode.